Okay, we are on.
We're all here.
Hello, everyone in
Hi,
Facebook land.
everybody.
Hello, fellow isolationists, if that's a word.
Word now. It's a word now. We hope everybody's doing well out there.
Yeah.
We know we're all in the same boat. Actually, we're all in separate boats, but we're all in the same water. So we're keeping a distance from each other. But you know what? Over the last little while, it has been our absolute pleasure to be able to connect with many people through this technology and to really help to strengthen relationships and families and find out how we can grow closer together in our hearts while we're staying so close together physically as well.
Okay, and while we're kind of waiting for more people to join the party here, maybe you can share it and do a watch party or whatever you do there on Facebook. But I think these boxes look a little dirty, so I need to sanitize them a little bit. Huh?
This is our last bottle of hand sanitizer, and
because there's others with us here in the boxes. Okay, we better introduce them.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we have one of our kitchen couples with a Better Us. It's always a pleasure to have Mike and Diane Clemens.
They're right there.
In the box.
Hey, Mike and Diane. You know Mike and Diane Clemens. Pinball Clemens. Many people know Pinball from his many years with the CFL.
Well, he's a legend with the CFL, actually. And not only as a player.
That just means I'm old.
But as a star player, then as an amazing coach, and now as general manager of the team. I'm sure there's lots we could ask you about that, but we don't want to scoop the news or whatever's happening there with the Argos.
And then, of course, Diane, your beautiful bride right next to you, is a recording artist, your fellow member of your foundation. You guys run together. She's a mom of 3 beautiful girls, and a dear friend. I know she and I have been in touch over the last number of months, and just a really special person, Diane Clemens. And then
we have from down south in California, west and south, with Bill Pam Farrel. And of course, they've been regulars also as teaching experts on A Better Us. It's always great when we can show some segments with Bill and Pam and then have our kitchen couples talk about what they say.
I have lost count of how many books Bill and Pam Farrel have written. I don't know if anybody knows how many books they've written because they just keep writing more. They just keep coming out.
Well, let's ask them. Is it like 40, 50?
52.
52.
One for every week of the year.
There you go. I like that thinking, Ann.
Probably best known for the Men Are Like Waffles, Women Are Like Spaghetti book, and great insights there into the psyche, his and her psyches.
And we're going to be talking about a lot of that in the coming minutes. But before we get into all of that really good meaty stuff, we just want to ask everybody, what's going on? Like, Mike and Diane, how are you coping? What's going on there as you're self-isolating?
Other than our girls going stir crazy from being cooped up all day long. But you know what? I think we're pretty blessed because for a lot of people that are in condos and apartments, they don't have the luxury of just walking out back into the yard and just hanging out back there. So we're blessed to be able to have that. And you know what? We're just trying to keep ourselves busy and entertained in all kinds of ways and not get on each other's nerves.
That's probably the biggest accomplishment right there.
These new platforms give us a way to connect that we've never had before. And the challenge with that is, well, I actually have to work still. And so I was on the phone for about 8 hours yesterday.
Wow.
And at some point around 10:30, she's like, "You've been on the phone all day." And I was like, "Yes, honey." So we are, there is a level of normalcy to life, if we could say that, because of our ability to connect. And so we're doing a lot of the same things that we would be doing ordinarily. At the same time, this is, more different than we've ever seen in our lives. And so it's that combination. And one of the things is really, though, just being closer to family. And yes, maximize that time by loving on each other. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, well, there's some good advice right there.
Bill and Pam, what's going on with you guys?
Yeah, We went from tiny house to tinier house. Yeah, you know, a few years ago we sold everything and we moved on to a boat, which we love. You know, living on the boat there in Southern California in a slip, and every day, you know, kayaking to get our mail and fun things like that. But Bill's parents, well, just tell them about your parents.
Well, I will always remember when this became very real to me, because I was actually on my way to Edmonton.
To speak for Promise Keepers.
I was halfway there and I was changing planes when I got the message that the conference had been canceled and I needed to turn around and go home.
Which, yeah, he could. If he would have gone on into Canada, he might still be there calling you up. Can I come stay at your house?
But then when I got home, California was one of the first places in the U.S. to do the shelter at home.
Yeah. I call it house arrest.
Yeah.
And the announcement was made that all elderly people need to be home. Well, one of the things we're doing in this season of life is taking care of my 90-year-old parents. And it's been able to be kind of a part-time thing until this happened.
Yeah, Bill's dad had a stroke recently, a second stroke recently, and he had just come home from rehab when the whole shelter in place happened. So super high needs.
And one of the things I worked out with my parents was I had them put a travel trailer on their property so that I would have a place to work.
An office.
When I had to be here, you know, throughout the day. Little did we know that office would become our shelter.
Right. This tiny RV is where we get to hang out for months now. Who knows how long?
And I jokingly said that the only difference between a 90-year-old and a toddler is a bank account.
Right.
So I have heard in the last 2 weeks, I'm lonely. I want to go somewhere. Why do I have to be cooped up at my house? Can't we do something?
His dad is so upset that the Dodgers are not playing. I mean,
goodness.
life is over because the Dodgers are not playing.
and what we're doing here now, like we can see each other. Well, my dad's legally blind,
so he can't do this kind of thing.
so the TV doesn't help.
Yeah, and
So
so
are taking care of your parents. That's what you're doing.
yes, we're sheltering in place to take care of our parents. Yeah, like sacrificing whatever freedom to make sure they live through this, basically.
So,
And
so
to cheer 'em up.
basically, we learned we have no control,
Oh, that's a shock.
and we just get to be servants and trust that it really is the path to greatness.
Yeah, if you want to be great in God's kingdom, be the servant of all. Yeah, we taught that to our kids. Yeah, a little song.
We are so thankful that you're actually being a servant here too with us by sharing your great depth of wisdom.
Just to say, by the way, those who are just joining us on Facebook, you know, please share it. Start a watch party or whatever you can do. Let's get as many people, because once we get into this good stuff of some teaching, we want to make sure that goes far and wide.
Yes.
As far as us, we've been self-isolating here for a couple weeks now.
Yeah.
And we've been pretty careful. You know, we go out for walks just around the neighborhood. It's funny when you're walking down the sidewalk and someone else is walking toward you now.
Yeah.
Normally you'd walk by, you'd say, hey, how you doing today? They cross the street.
Yeah.
And which for reason, I guess.
And
I've started saying happy social distancing day.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I've had to actually keep a little further arm's distance length away just because of my coming off of chemo, and I'm in a higher risk category. So we're not really seeing family at all.
Her immune system is still not where it needs to be after chemo,
but that's okay.
So hard. Not seeing the grandkids is probably the hardest part of all of this.
The whole phone thing where they send us the videos of the grandkids, I live for those.
And we keep their artwork on the fridge right there. See?
Awesome.
Okay. Now that we know what everybody's been up to, we should probably get down to
now.
business.
I heard someone suggest that maybe during this time of self-isolation with couples and families, that maybe 9 months from now, there's going to be a whole new generation popping up. And they're going to call them the coronials.
Right. Or when they grow up, they'll be called the quarantines.
Yeah, teens. There you go. Anyway, but probably I would imagine in some households, it's maybe not so nice. There might be doing the social distancing, but maybe with the stress and everything, there's some emotional distancing too going on.
Yeah.
So, Bill and Pam, maybe give us some thoughts on this whole thing as it relates to couples and what they're going through now.
Right. Yeah. Hey, I want to start with a little bit of humor because it's like a coping skill nowadays, right? And so we just want to have a moment of silence for all the poor husbands who said, honey, as soon as I have time, I'll get to that to-do list.
No excuses.
Diane, you know, Mike off the phone, then he can get to his to-do list.
That's right. That's right.
I was saying, thanks to social media, I haven't gotten to that list yet. Yes.
Well, when we got married, the verse that was inscribed on our gifts to one another was 1 John 4:19. We love because God first loved us. And so we know that in a time, in everyday life, but especially in a time like this, God gives us the power to love.
Right. And Ron, I appreciate you bringing it up because we're all facing a glorious challenge. Because the hardest thing for people to do in life is make transitions. It starts at birth. Like birth is a traumatic event that gets the whole thing started. And anytime there's a big change in your life, it tends to raise your stress level. But at the same time, we have an opportunity to spend time together right now that is very unusual. So if we can make the transition and get to the things that Pam's going to start leading us through, we can actually enhance our relationships during this time, rather than just share the stress back and forth.
Right. We can build and bless our relationships during this time. Our sons, 2 of the 3 are coaches. And so they spend a lot of time away from their families because the demands are so high. Pinball would totally relate to that. And but right now they're the ones home because the universities are and the high schools are all closed here. Right. And their wives are so happy because they're like the dad party machine now, and the kids are thinking this is the new normal, and so they're so excited to have so much dad time. So we can really, there are upsides if we look for them. We can build and bless our relationships if we look for it. And one of the things that Bill and I have kind of tried to do since we started social distancing and sequestering early here in California, especially since we're so close to Los Angeles, it's basically like a quarantine shutdown there. Is Bill and I, we have a couple sentences, and that is like, I'm gonna outlove you and I'm gonna outserve you. And so if we both have that attitude, we get along a lot better in this cozy small space.
I like that.
Yeah,
I like that too.
It's certainly a daily reminder.
Right.
Yeah, because what happens when things like this happen, you start to realize you married what you don't have, and you do things very differently. And so getting back to the basics, like our relationships mirror our relationship with Jesus. And the key to our relationship with Jesus is to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength.
And notice it says all your heart, all your soul, all your mind, all your strength. It's an all in.
And this is a good time to practice that. So we want to just give some practical ideas on how do you do that? How do you love each other with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength?
And so like with all your heart, this last year, I had the opportunity to write Discovering Joy in Philippians. And one of the favorite verses from Philippians is, it's right that I feel this way because I have you on my heart. And so if we carry our spouse on our heart, we're going to give them the benefit of the doubt, and we're going to be more thoughtful and more kind during a time like this. And just go for those small gestures. If you're going to go get something to drink, hey, can I bring you something? I'm going to get my coffee. Can I, warm yours up? What's your favorite snack that I'll make it up today?
Like one of the things that we have been able to do that we don't normally get to do is we have been sharing more meals together. Because often I come and take care of my parents in the morning.
And I'm over at the boat, writing.
So we don't have breakfast together very often, except for now. Now we get to have breakfast together almost every morning. And Pam's been doing a great job pulling that together for us. So those things that you do that just keep you connected at the level of your heart, is one of the most important steps we can take, because if you have each other on your heart, you see each other differently. And what tends to happen in marriage is when you disconnect your hearts, then you evaluate each other based on behavior. And that's when it gets to be a problem, because none of us act good enough for long enough to meet the other person's expectations.
That's a really good point, Bill. None of us act good enough for long enough if it depends on our actions.
Yeah.
Right. Right. And so,
especially right now.
Oh, I thought you were going to point the finger this way.
No.
Okay.
We want to thank you for the
I can point the finger at both of us. Mike is saying something. What's that, Mike?
We want to thank you for the personal counseling session, because I'm going to outlove her and outserve her. The Dodgers might not be playing, but the competition is on, right?
I love it. So good.
That's
And we've looked for creative ways to create a little bit of tenderness in our relationship. For example, you know, if you just keep your eyes out, God will send you even to your house what you might need to do something creative. So I was reorganizing in our book storage area, and I came across 2 plastic cups and a little bit of sparkling cider. And then that day in the mail, our friends, the Kents, Jean and Carol Kent, their book Staying Power came, and it came with like a little fondue kit. And so I'm like, we have a date. We're gonna binge watch A Better Us, and we're gonna have fondue and sparkling cider. And so you look for ways to bring creativity and tenderness into your relationship in those small ways, like maybe even giving a real day off, you know, because some of us are just as busy, like Pinball was talking about being on the phone all day, and some of us are just as busy. And so maybe like, okay, we're really going to take Sunday off together. We really are going to like chill, get off the screens for a day, go outside. And we've seen that families oftentimes, I grew up on a farm, and that was a benefit to me right now, because when we were on the farm, we would work really, really hard from early morning. We would come in, have a big meal as a family, a lot of great conversation, and then we would actually take a siesta before going back to work because the sun was too hot. And so that's a wonderful family routine, actually, in a lot of cultures. To give that quiet time. Okay, everybody to your rooms in the middle of the day. We're going to take a nap. And so that could mean cozy time for husband and wife. Could mean just having that conversation, having a little bit of cup of coffee without the kids and grands. If everybody's just taking a little bit of personal space, then
I thought you were going to refer to the title of one of your books, Pam, The Red Hot Monogamy.
Exactly.
But you know what, Bill and Pam, Ron alluded to this earlier, and we know of couples who would love to be in that headspace and heart space where they want to, you know, grow and be closer through all of that they're going through. But coming into this social isolation, there are already problems between the two of them. And they, you know, what would you say to them? Where do they start? Like there's already distance there emotionally.
Yeah. So that's like the second point, which would be love the Lord your God with all your soul. And this is a great time to grow together. And I was only half kidding that they should binge watch A Better Us. But this is the time to now do those online marriage summits. Every Monday at the Bill and Pam Facebook page, we have a hashtag Monday Marriage Date Night. And it's like 10 or 15 minutes, and then we give a date night assignment. And you can get a lot of good information online right now if you just look a little bit. You know, take those trusted voices, those guests that the Mains have had on, and go to their websites. And you can use this as your personal counseling time to begin growing in your relationship with God. And
and one of the problems that you point to, Ann, is our lives are so complicated in the Western Hemisphere that we just keep adding and adding and adding and adding, and it loads up expectations. And the more expectations you have, the more disappointed you're going to be in one another. And an interruption like this, it removes all those complications. And all of us have been forced to simplify our life. And it's quite possible that those couples who were struggling going into this, when they start doing the simple things together, they're going to experience a new breakthrough in their relationship.
Like pray together every morning over coffee and pray for each other. Or like,
and if you're too mad to pray, make breakfast together.
Right.
Because it warms up the relationship.
Like,
And
Leanne, do you do breakfast together usually, or what's your routine?
Well, if I could go back, I love how they started, because they quoted the verse where Jesus said he first loved, or God said he first loved us. We love him because he first loved us.
Yeah.
And many times for couples, it's the start. There's so much stuff that's built up, right? That no one wants to be the first person to give in, right? And it is that concept of, you know, he first loved us. And so if we're imitating God, right, then it's our job to take that first step, right? To move forward and say that, to be the one to love first, to reach out first, because a lot of it is getting it started, right? Once you get started, you can kind of get into a rhythm, but most of the time that thick air because that thick air stays there, that fog stays there, that separation is there, because we can't get started. No one wants to love first. And so if we can follow God in that mission and saying that, be the first one to love, to reach out.
Exactly.
I like to challenge guys who, we all want to be heroes, right, as guys. But I say, you be the hero guy. You want to be a hero, you be the hero, you take the first step. You be the first one to say, I'm sorry. You be the first one to do something, out of the box, out of love for someone.
Swallowing your pride too.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot of, pride to get out of the way to be able to do that.
I always tell our wow wives, I do a weekly wow wife, and I tell them that pray and ask God to give you the want to love your spouse. Like if you have to start there, just pray that. And then there's no downside of being the one to be first, because it protects your heart. It makes you a more loving person. So if you just have your quiet time every day, spend time with Jesus and say, just pour your love into me so I can pour my love into the people that I'm sheltering with, God will give us that ability and that power to be the one who can take that first step, that high road. And
Mike's words reminded me, the only relationship in the Bible that's compared to the gospel is marriage. And in a relationship with Jesus, your life can get transformed in a moment in time. You go from being God's enemy to God's friend. You go from being lost to being found in a moment. And marriage works the same way. That marriages go from being in trouble to being vibrant in one breakthrough. And you can go from being at odds with each other to being really interested in one another in one breakthrough. And everybody thinks it always takes a long time, but what it really takes is a breakthrough of the heart, because it mirrors the gospel. And so during this time where we're all close to one another, many troubled marriages are going to find that breakthrough. And, it could mean reaching out to a professional Christian counselor or a marriage coach and setting up an appointment like this, where you're on Zoom in two different places, but they still can give you the same great counsel. And so Bill does a lot of coaching from, like, you can see his computer in the back. And I'm doing mentoring for wives too. So, we just are changing the way we help people, but there are still people out there that will help you. And this is a great time for couples to actually make appointments with each other, because one of the dangers is we're going to spend a lot of time together and not address the issues that we now have time to talk about, because they're hard to talk about. And so if you can contain them, if you can say, hey, let's meet on Saturday afternoon from 2 to 3 and talk about some of the stuff that's bothering us. And at 3, we're going to shut that down and go back to being a family. And we'll do something fun. And that way it doesn't put a negative attitude all the way through the house all the time. And it gives you an opportunity to intentionally talk through some of the things that are difficult to talk through, but really need to be talked through because you're spending so much time together.
That's a great idea.
And I heard someone say the other day, just a little quote that I heard in regards to relationships and being, everybody, each one of us having our differences, they said that the flaws depends on the diamond depends on the flaws. So you know how if you take a diamond and they say the best diamond has the most flaws.
Yes.
So if you
Yes.
think about that with your relationship, each one of us have our flaws.
Yeah.
That's not a bad thing. We always think that that's a bad thing.
Right.
Right.
Turn that around, it's actually not so bad, because if we work on those flaws together, then we can have a beautiful diamond.
Well,
Right.
this is awesome because I got a lot of flaws. I feel really.
And forgive me for quoting Rocky Balboa. But when Paulie asked him, "What are you doing with my sister?" when he was dating Adrian, Rocky's response was, "I got gaps, she got gaps. Together we fill gaps." And your idea of flaws, boy, it's right on.
Yeah. So I mean, and I thought, I was like, wow, the sparkle depends on the flaws.
Yeah.
So if you deal with those flaws, you'll have a great sparkle in that diamond. In that marriage, you'll have a great sparkle.
So often when we find these differences, though, we let them kind of do this with us instead of filling those gaps.
Yeah.
So Bill and Pam, what would you say to couples who can't get past this? Like they're just stuck button heads, and it's really hard to find where do those gaps fill in?
Yeah, one of the things that Bill and I have been doing that we encourage everybody to do is with social distancing, but taking a prayer walk together every day. And that's when we clear the air. And especially if you have little ones around the house or teenagers, you don't want to have like that volatile time right in front of them. You might need to clear the air on some issues. And so if you walk, those happy endorphins are going to be releasing. So that's good. And if you walk and you're in public, you're going to behave. There's not going to be any domestic violence, hopefully. Although I did see a post the other day that said, crime has gone down, no robberies, no car accidents, but husbands and wife incidents are up to 8,000 a day. So it's a joke, but that it is real. Like, because we're living so close to each other, we may have to take time and get out of the house to a safe space in the sunshine where we behave well and really talk. And Bill and I, we talk and pray. And we went to a marriage encounter when we were newlyweds. And we learned a great dialogue thing where you write down in your journal through your feelings, and then you bring those papers and you read them to one another. So if things are really volatile, write it all down, and then on your walk, take turns reading it, and then listening, not interrupting, but listening to try to gain more understanding, and then pray for each other. And what happens is you get to a deeper level. If you write it down, it's not just the surface irritations, like it really bugs me that you do this or you do that. Well, it's not really that. You're feeling devalued as a person. So then you start talking about what makes you feel valued as a spouse, and you get down to the bigger issues.
That's good. I like that.
Write things down, because I do that with Mike. I've done that for years. When I feel like I can't speak on something, or we really need to talk about something, I write it down. I leave a note on his pillow, on his sink, or so that he can see it. And because sometimes for me, when you read things, the person gets it, rather than you speaking it. Sometimes if they read it, it kind of just sinks in a little bit more.
It kind of takes the emotion out of it.
Yes. It
But
takes
she's
them.
really cool. I don't interrupt her. Yes.
That's a good point. That's a really good point.
And I don't want to get away from this conversation without saying to people, this is a time where we need to be tough on ourselves. Like one of the things we were asked, what is it that makes your marriage work? And one of the conclusions we reached is we've had a habit of being tough on ourselves and tender on each other.
So we Lord, grow me up, make me better in this way.
Because right now we need to tell ourselves things like, being alone is worse than being with somebody I'm having a hard time understanding. Because that is the alternative, is you could be alone right now. And then the things you're irritated about with your spouse are probably the things that attracted you to your spouse.
And so if you can turn that, it's like two sides of the same coin. If you can flip it over, instead of criticizing what bugging you, you compliment what attracted you.
And then to go back to Diane's statement, we all have flaws, and God puts us in relationship with other people who are good at what we are not good at. Like I know one of the things that happens in our relationship is when we get under stress like this, my tendency is to calm everything down. Pam's tendency is to ramp everything up.
We got to do this, we got to do this, we got to do this. Like, right. Here's the to-do list. God loves you, and I have a wonderful plan for your life.
And the volume in our home has actually gone up. Now, I would turn it down if it were up to me. Pam raises the volume. Now, I have a choice. I can be upset about that, or I can realize Pam is bringing to this game what I don't have. And so our team is stronger because we're different.
I love that.
But you have to talk to yourself tough to grab that. Yeah. Because when you're under stress, you want to make everything in your world good for you. And that's what causes a lot of tension in married couples. So we have to talk to ourselves tough, but be tender on our spouse.
And you know what? One of the things that Bill is really great at is bringing calm and serenity and peace to any situation, even really, really hard ones. And that actually—
You mean like having a 90-year-old?
Like 90-year-old dad who's like upset all the time. Yeah. But and a mom who's a hoarder. Yeah. So
it's fun never stops.
After they don't need us anymore and they're in heaven, we're gonna write the Crazy Train book. That's another story. But the third point is love the Lord with all your mind. Yeah. And this is what Bill, like, I have so appreciated this particular part of who Bill is and why I feel like I married up and married well is he has the ability to apply scripture in a way that calms everybody down. And this is one of the key things he's going to share.
Like you've noticed that in this big interruption of our life, some people have handled it well, and some people have been very upset about it. And I got to asking myself, what is the difference between the people who handle this well and the people who don't? And I believe one of the things that helps is people who've developed a simple core in their life handle this better than people who have a complex core. Because we have lots of opportunity in life, and you have the opportunity most of the time to add lots of things to your life. But they're not all important, they're not all essential, even though they're good. And when things like this happen, you get stripped down to the core of your life. And Paul referred to that in 1 Timothy chapter 6. Verse 8, he said, "Godliness with contentment is great gain. For we brought nothing into the world, and we can take nothing out of it. But if we have food and clothing, we will be content with that." And that word contentment, it was a word in his day that philosophers generally used to refer to somebody who is free from their circumstances. And so if we can have a simple core, this idea of food and clothing, it's actually not that simple. It's actually a reference back to the garden where Adam and Eve had four things. They had clothes, they had food, they had companionship, first of all with God and second with each other, and then they had something purposeful to do.
They tended the garden, and we know that they have clothes because God had to kill an animal to clothe them.
And this time right now in history, we all have an opportunity to kind of grab hold of that simple core. That we can ask ourselves, do we have food? Do we have clothing? Do we have people in our life that we can connect with? And can we do something purposeful with our time? And if you can do those four things, you're going to find this to be a good time away from all the responsibilities of life. But if you need, I need to be driving my car, and I need to be spending time with you, I need to go to this conference, I need to do this, I need to do that, I need to do this, you're just going to be disappointed and frustrated. But if you have a simple core in your life, you can be content during this time and wait for the opportunity to come back to add all that other stuff into your experience.
And the purposeful work can be fun too. Like, for example, maybe you need to clean out the closets. Yeah. So then turn that into doing a fashion show for each other. Like what? Walk the aisle, and you try on different outfits. All that, you look hot in that, baby. So you can make fun out of purposeful work. I mean, maybe you have to paint the bathroom. We'll just like paint a little bit on each other too. So take that purposeful work and add a little fun to it. Yeah, we want to make sure we get stuff done during this time. But one of the things we want to come out of is a good relationship when it's all over. So add in a little bit like, God, how can I turn this hard work into fun now?
Right. And all of us know that you're the core in your body. If your stomach muscles are strong and your core is strong, everything else works better in your body.
Yeah.
And the same thing is true of our lives. If we have a simple core that's strong, we can get through all these unexpected interruptions. But if your core is not strong or it's too complicated, then you're just frustrated all the time.
And the last would be love the Lord with all your strength.
Mm-hmm.
And this is like, Pinball, you'll love this. We do workout challenges.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like, okay, we go on a prayer walk, but okay, let's step it up a bit. You know, so we got our weights and we do like the whole calisthenics thing. And the other day, Bill's like, see that branch right there? I double dog dare you to jump up and see if you can reach that branch. I mean, it's fun, you know, take a soccer ball with you and like try to get into a goal at the local field. Nobody's around, it's just you guys. But challenge each other physically, because if we get those happy endorphins going when we're out and about, like just in our backyard, I'm really big on this is the time to revive the backyard. Put up that volleyball net or that what's it called with that little birdie thing, that badminton net, or the cornhole where they throw the bean bags. So like revive your backyard and bring the whole family out there and get some competitive. The Olympics were put off. Just hold them in your backyard. And then the red hot monogamy.
Because now we're getting some nicer weather up here in Canada, so we can start to get outside. So
yes, okay, get your snowshoes on then, and have a race in your snowshoes. Yeah. Bill and I love snowshoes. We actually wish we could have done that this year. Then the red hot monogamy part. This is the part to outlove each other. For example, in our book Red Hot Monogamy, there's 200 red hot ideas.
This would be a great time to try some of them.
That's right. And so like each of you take a marker with a different color and like highlight the ones you want to try, and then take turns. Just encouraging, pleasing, blessing each other, and bring a little bit of love and fan the flame, even though your heart may not want to. Your heart may be like, it's the last thing on my list. I think I'm gonna die. So I'm so worried. I'm so worked up. I'm so afraid. Take comfort in one another. Bring that fear together and ask God to meet you, even in your romantic time. And God will do that. Oftentimes that act of coming together for red hot monogamy, intimacy, is exactly the medicine that will reach your heart and your soul and your body and your mind all at once.
Well, Bill, I'm going to in a moment ask you to close us in prayer, but just before we do, I just thought, Mike and Diane, any final thoughts as we're wrapping things up here?
Well, one of them for me is I want to make sure that we book Bill and Pam in after this is all over. I need to coach my team. Yes, I teach guys to play better together and be better partners at home. We're going to win the championship.
Amen. That's right.
Amen. Yeah.
You are tremendous coaches, and the examples you make are so clear and vivid, and you do it with such joy. We know that it's sincere. We know you mean it because of the joy you present it with.
Yeah.
And so we're just really
like that men who know their wives love them are more focused and more productive.
That's right. That's right.
Absolutely.
So we can make this part of the playbook.
That's right. Women who feel cherished, they're more motivated to love everyone in their life well.
That's right. Love your wife on one.
Yeah. Love your wife on one. That's good. And we know it's possible because, it's really God empowered. Because we come from crazy homes. My parents divorced. I'm firstborn daughter of alcoholic dad. Like, sheltering in place I was snowed in with my dad, a raging alcoholic, for 2 weeks when I was a tween. Like, I preferred being outside in the freezing cold blizzard than being in our house. That's how scary it was. And so it is important that we say, Lord, make me the best me, so that I can give the best to the people that are around me.
And my mom is so
pray along those lines for us.
Yep, love to. Father, we thank you so much for your grace and your strength. Thank you for this opportunity that we have. Like, most of us didn't see it as an opportunity when it first started. We saw it as a big interruption and a scary thing that we had to fight. But it has turned out to be a gift of time, where we get to spend time with the people we care about the most. And so would you help each of us make the most of this time? Give us the grace to recognize our love. I pray for couples that are struggling, that you would lead them through a breakthrough, and that they would rediscover the love that you put in their hearts that drew them together in the first place. I pray you would add wisdom to people's relationships and help them discover that their differences make them stronger. And as a team, they can accomplish so much more than they can do as an individual. And then I pray you'd give all of these couples opportunities to laugh, to learn something new, and to create memories that will literally last for the rest of their life. So we commit ourselves to your grace, and we pray that you would do through us during this time what is beyond us, so that we might have joy and you might get honor. In Jesus' name.
Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Great stuff. Thanks so much, Mike and Diane, Bill and Pam. It's been wonderful. And we'll have to do it again maybe if this keeps going.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, sounds great.
Okay, so only thing missing is I have eaten Anne's food, and she's an amazing cook. So you're gonna have to put something in the mail to me, Anne. You're way better cook. Even the recipes. Oh yes.
The recipes I can mail to you. The food, I don't think it'll
Well,
make it.
we've had Bill and Pam in our home here in this kitchen, and so they got to enjoy your cooking. By the way, Bill, besides Bill and Pam doing their teaching segments, Bill joined us and Pinball and the guys from A Better Us on The Huddle. There's some segments online. If you go to our YouTube channel, you can just look up The Huddle, and you'll see all us guys talking about guy things from a football stadium. So I'll leave it at that. Go check it out, everyone. And go to betterus.tv. You can watch full programs of A Better Us there in your downtime.
Pop some popcorn, and crawl into bed and watch A Better Us. It's a great idea.
For sure. Mike and Diane, Bill and Pam, thank you so much for spending this time with us. We love you guys, and we'll do it again soon.
Sounds great.
Treat.
See you guys.
Yeah.